up, guys? So, continuing the Ryan Murphy related content, today I'm going to be talking about the new limited series Hollywood, which is his third project to land on Netflix in the last few weeks, along with the two documentaries Circus of Books and A Secret Love, both of which I reviewed. I'll put links to those at the end of this video if you want to check those out. I really enjoyed both those documentaries, so I had high hopes for Hollywood, especially given that I had the talents of Jim Parsons, Darren Criss, Patti Lupone, Holland Taylor, and Dylan McDermott. I got up early, binged all 7 episodes of it back to back, and what did I think of it? Honestly, I finished it and I thought, is that all there is? In a similar fashion to Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Ryan Murphy has rewritten the history of Hollywood, mixing fiction with real-life showbiz folk and doing some progressive tweaking. Set in 1947 Tinseltown, the series follows a group of young, aspiring talents, actors, writers, directors, all trying to make a name for themselves in the movies. You've got war vet turned wannabe actor Jack Costello, played by David Corenswet, a black gay screenwriter called Archie Coleman, played by Jeremy Pope, Jake Picking plays real-life closeted movie star Roy Fitzgerald, aka Rock Hudson, Darren Criss plays half-Filipino director Raymond Ainsley, who's in a relationship with aspiring black actress Camille Washington, played by Laura Harrier, and there's also another aspiring actress called Claire Wood, who's played by Samara Weaving, who is secretly the daughter of Ace Studios owner Ace Sandberg, who's played by Rob Reiner, and his wife is called Avis Sandberg, and she's played by Patti Lupone. They all end up involved in the making of Archie's movie about real-life actress Peg Entwistle, who committed suicide in 1932 by jumping off the H on the Hollywood sign. Breathe. Ryan Murphy has been putting out a lot of TV, from Glee to American Horror Story to American Crime Story to Pose to Scream Queens to The Politician, and there's a real variety when it comes to his work. Some of it is amazing. Like, I honestly think the OJ Crime Story series is probably one of the best TV series ever made. And then you've got stuff like Scream Queens and The Politician, which just couldn't hold my attention. So yeah, his work can be very hit or miss. Hollywood falls into the miss pile for me. While I admire his good intentions to make a series that gives the marginalized people of history a voice, Hollywood is merely a glossy, vacuous, pat on the back what-if fantasy. Like a lot of real-life Hollywood, this series is all surface and no depth. It's packed with talented stars and it looks great. The production values alone are enough to draw you in. But while it's trying to say a lot, it actually says very little. Alright, so let's talk about the good and the bad stuff. We'll start off with the positives. Firstly, the performances are all fantastic. There's about 11 people that are in every single episode, and remarkably, everybody gets their moment, for lack of a less puntastic term, in the spotlight. Everybody has 1 or 2 moments over the course of the series, whether it be a dramatic moment, a big speech, monologue, what have you, which feels like a clip that they would show at the Emmys, okay? Everybody gets something to sink their teeth into, and everybody is great. I'm not going to go into everybody's performances, but I will give special mention to a few who really stood out to me. My favourite performance of this series definitely had to be Joe Mantello as Dick Mansfield. His performance is so beautiful. He plays this closeted movie executive producer who's in a position of power, but he doesn't abuse his power, even though he could, and he's so conflicted and struggling to accept who he is. I loved the pathos of his character, and I loved seeing how he portrayed it. Joe Mantello, favourite by far. I also really love Patti Lupone as Avis Sandberg. She has a really rewarding and joyful character arc through the season. It's wonderful to see a middle-aged woman have an arc where she finds herself later in life. She finds a passion and a talent for movie making. It's wonderful to see how she comes into herself. Excellent performance by Patti Lupone. Dylan McDermott as gas station gigolo Ernie is another standout. He's got oodles of charisma and so much showmanship flair, as well as newcomers Jeremy Hope as Archie and Laura Harrier as Camille. They were both superb, 2 stars on the rise, wonderful. And finally, Jim Parsons as real-life slimy agent Henry Wilson. What a fantastic role for Jim Parsons. Couldn't be further removed from Sheldon Cooper. He's this detestable, vile, sexual predator. It's a really good role for Jim Parsons, and it's so refreshing to see him play something so against his type. Again, the show looks great, as this is meant to be an idealistic reimagining of the golden age of Hollywood. It's got the late 40s aesthetic, but there's also a picturesque sheen to it. It's clean, it's saturated in colour, it looks inviting, as it's supposed to be a dreamland, a place where dreams are made. It's somewhere that you would want to go. The costumes are ravishing and the sets are very convincing. The direction is fine, but nothing particularly memorable or striking. The music is very well implemented, with lots of classics such as We're in the Money and There's No Business Like Show Business. It gives the series a little spring in its step. Right, now let's talk about the negatives. Now, I will say that the overarching message of this this series is lovely. That being that if Hollywood had embraced inclusivity, diversity, and equality during its golden years, then we probably would be living in a more tolerant and progressive society now. It's a lovely slice of sentimentality that movies can show us the world that could be. But the exploration of Hollywood's more murky subject matter feels rather superficial. The series touches upon inequality, homophobia, racism, predatory behavior in the industry, feminism, diversity, and representation on screen, but Hollywood, the series, just feels like a tick list of woke subjects rather than a scathing indictment of the entertainment industry. By the climax of this series, everything is wrapped up spick and span in a neat little bow, and it has nothing more to say than progress is good. Wow, groundbreaking. The 7-episode run could be a contributing factor to its disappointment. 7 episodes doesn't provide a lot of time for ideas to marinate. The last 2 episodes of this series were my least favorites because they had to wrap up so many characters and plot threads, and it all feels rushed. Characters behave oddly, like without spoiling it for you, there's one character that learns that her boyfriend has had sex with someone very close to her, and her reaction is, oh well, spilt milk. And then there's another character that wakes up from a coma, yes, it's that type of show, and has a complete personality transplant. It's absurd. I also thought that Jack's wife was a completely unnecessary character because her character arc is completely inconsequential. The series wouldn't be any different if this character wasn't in it. I also didn't appreciate them trying to redeem the despicable Henry Wilson. He does some horrific things over the course of this season, and by the end of the season, they tried to pass off all of his transgressions, some of which are actual crimes, as just shortcomings. Redemption needs to be earned, and he doesn't earn it. And what's funny and a little bit ironic is that Henry doesn't like the ending of the movie Peg turned Meg, and I kind of had the same feeling with this series. The ending didn't sit right with me. The last 2 episodes squish so many important developments into such a short space of time that it feels rushed and undeserved. In the last episode alone, the film gets its release, becomes a box office smash, and then they end up going to the Oscars. You could have done an entire episode just dedicated to the Oscars alone. But with a lot of character arcs to wrap up and such a short amount of time to do it in, there's a lot of spoon-fed sentimentality forced into all these Oscar speeches. It's a celebration of the outsider, the minority, the other, but it lacks dramatic weight because of how fast we got there. Like I said before, any attempts to explore the societal obstacles standing in their way is only brushed upon. The struggle is implied, but you don't really see them struggle, so it doesn't feel cathartic when they win. Plus, there's also a character death that feels like an afterthought. I won't say who it is because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I was really disappointed with how they killed this character off. It just comes so unexpectedly and inexplicably that it just feels like the writers thought, oh, let's throw a twist in at the end. It's a twist for the sake of having a twist. The death of a great character for nothing more than a last-minute surprise. It carries no meaning. It's just lazy writing. Like the writers were going, oh, you thought this character was going to die because we've been giving you these clues, but red herring, actually we're going to kill off this character because at least you won't be able to predict that. Well, it worked. You surprised us, but it didn't mean anything. Bravo. All right, so I was trying to ask those 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Maybe if there was a second season, I might watch it because the characters were interesting and there are great performances in it. However, if this is just a one-off, then no, I probably wouldn't rewatch it again. It's kind of like when you go on a date with a really, really, really pretty person, but then after a couple hours of getting to know them on the date, you find out there's nothing more than, oh, they're just a pretty face. There's nothing underneath that you can really connect with and really appreciate. So you're like, once was fine, but I wouldn't want to go on a second date with you. All right, second question, do I recommend it for you guys? If you're looking for an escape, then sure. We can all use a distraction right now with what's going on in the world. And that's what Hollywood itself is known for, providing escapism. But that's all that this series is. Mindless escapism with a lot of pretty, beautiful actors and locations and costumes. And that's it. Nothing else. This isn't a series I would push upon my friends like I did with OJ, the crime series. So no, I'm not going to push it on you. And question number 3, what score am I going to give it out of 10? Hollywood had honest intentions, but the end result is rather meaningless. Of course, representation and diversity on our screens matters, duh, but the ending of Hollywood left me feeling more miffed then uplifted. This series doesn't even know what it is. Is it a black comedy? Is it a surreal fantasy? It feels so unsure of itself that you don't even know how to feel about it when it's over. I enjoyed the performances and the production values, but the series I just found quite bland. If it had more gumption to explore the darker side of Hollywood, like actually go into some of the topics it addresses with a bit more depth, then it would have had more agency. I would have been more interested in it. But this series feels too rushed, too sanitized, and too scared to say anything meaningful about its titular subject, which is Hollywood. So I'm going to give Hollywood a score of 4 out of 10. As always, this is just one bloke's opinion, guys. I want to hear your thoughts on Ryan Murphy's Hollywood. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was meh? What is your favorite Ryan Murphy series as well? Let your voice be heard in the comment section down below. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, it's in the video description. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you want to, don't forget to click subscribe. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.